Right here is another shader developed to create a cool effect using two emission shaders combined and some clever use of ramps, vectors, noise, and some mass. We start with a basic object texture coordinate to center the noise texture on the cube that is being projected on, and the shader is being projected on. I use a noise texture, which is very unclear at first sight, but if you look very closely, you can see the basics of a noise texture inside of the object, of a colored noise texture inside of the object. The noise texture outputs noise in every axis. This is a three-dimensional noise texture, so it outputs in RGB and XYZ. The RGB values are taken as an XYZ value, and they can be subtracted as a vector from 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, center the noise texture, which is then compared to the actual coordinates of the object in a distance texture, which is then used in a color ramp that is black to color to green to black to generate this gradient that you see outside. This texture looks very simple, but it is making use of some very complicated, well, very simple shaders in a very unconventional way. This isn't a very conventional shader setup. For a more in-depth explanation, I can connect the output of I can override the main volume shader by removing it and simply hardwiring the color ramp from the noise into the surface of the material. This gradient you can't really see much, but if I place my handles correctly, you can start to see the flat noise shader. And if I connect the noise texture directly, it may not look like the same thing, but if I connect it through here, it becomes a bit more bright, and we can see the underlying nature, I guess, of the shader. If we connect it to a volume, it looks very white. This is counteracted by removing the black zone in the normal shader, removing the lower points in the curve on the color ramp, and only including the bright parts, like on the outer edges. Very hard to explain this in simple terms, but by using an emission shader as a volume shader, which is very unconventional since an emission shader is a surface shader, we can get a very nice effect like the one demonstrated here. After some compositing, after a quick render, in compositing we can enhance the look of the image in a very simple way, in some way increasing depths, making it more enjoyable to look at. In simple terms. complicated scene. Okay. After compositing, we're left with a very nice effect, I'd call it, right here. The animation for this object consists of basic noise input into a graph editor, well, a graph driver. From the mapping of the noise texture, moving it around, we can achieve different shapes. This is animated in graph editor on XYZ, which is added on top, blended on top of a polynomial generator that slowly increases the value, and on top of the increased value there is a noise placed on top of it, which allows me to achieve this animation. In real time it is very noisy, but in final animation I'll be uploaded separately. It will look much better. This shader also works in Eve, which is very good in my opinion. Not many do, and it runs way faster, but it doesn't look as good because the whites stand out a lot more. Color accuracy isn't really there in this render.